Good morning, everyone. Afterlife, a Netflix special directed and written by Ricky Gervais, was just released the 8th of March, and I just watched it entirely. I just binged it in like 2 days, and I loved it. I want to give my initial impressions, and then talk about the not the psychological plot about it, but more specifically the parts when he interacts with a psychologist, because I studied 4 years psychology and I spent a lot of time with psychologists. I also went to a public psychologist once, and I want to give a comparison between the real life and then this fictional representation of that. And I want to give my opinion, also some facts here and there, and to sort of guide people and also praise how well written this piece of art is and how amazingly realistic and at the same time fun, dramatic, exaggerated a bit Afterlife is. So obviously, but as you can tell, I loved it. I absolutely loved. I would give it a 10 out of 10. Um, I have a little bit of bias with Ricky Gervais because I love almost everything he has done. I love his comedy specials. I really think he's a really intelligent man, and I could see that he put a lot of himself in this character, Tony, and his view of the world and religion and blah blah blah. But in the show, I mean, obviously I'm gonna spoil some things. So right now is the moment where you should stop watching. You should totally watch it. Like I'm telling you, 10 out of 10. It's interesting. It's not boring. One minute you're laughing hysterically, the next minute you want to kill yourself. It's a roller coaster, and I think it's gonna get a lot of positive reviews because it's just so interesting, well written, and it's a roller coaster. Like it doesn't bore you to death. It doesn't make you sad all the time. It doesn't make you happy all the time. It's very well balanced all around, and it makes a small town with an average dude that just had a tragic story very very interesting. And that's when you can tell a story is interesting when you make the mundane really interesting rather than having superheroes destroying planets, and some people still manage to make that boring. So it goes to show the talent that the team behind this, and also obviously Ricky, had. So now I'm gonna get into the parts where the character Tony interacts with a psychologist. Obviously, the story is that his wife died of cancer, and he loved her. It was the only woman he ever loved, and he was still in love. I think they were together for 15 years. So he didn't see the point of living without her. So he wanted to kill himself. But every time he tried to kill himself, the dog was hungry. It just needed him, and he couldn't stand the face of the dog. And this might seem like an excuse, but it's, I think, in a lot of real cases, and you can talk about it with suicidal people. It's true. Sometimes a pet or somebody that cares about you or that needs you is just enough to keep you alive. And he even says it once to the nurse in the nursing home with his dad who has Alzheimer's. He says, "Once the dog goes and my dad goes, I don't have any responsibility in the world. I can do whatever I want. I can just kill myself." So he doesn't kill himself. So he thinks, when he's feeding the dog, he thinks, "Wow, I should be dead right now. So this is like a bonus. This is like extra time. So if I'm gonna keep on living, I'm gonna do it on my terms. I'm gonna do everything I ever want to do and have zero regrets. If I want to insult somebody, I will do it. If I want to scream, I will do it. If I want to just go home and do nothing, I will do it. I want to get drunk. Everything, live life in his own terms." And if everything goes wrong, he always has a plan B, which is just kill himself. Doesn't care. He cannot be affected because he could just kill himself. And there's some situations where he shows it when he gets mugged. He's like, "I'm not giving you any money. You can just fucking kill me. I don't care." He just punches the dude on the nose with the dog can, the dog food can, and he's like, "Wow, that really worked really well. Like, if they stabbed me or hurt me or anything, I could just die. That's the point. Like, they just made him a favor." So it's kind of a superpower in his eyes, makes him unvulnerable to a lot of things that people that care, that want to keep on living, would not be able to do because of that fear of death or harm. And it's really interesting. So he goes to a psychologist. He obviously needs help. He acknowledges that. He wants to stop suffering. His main goal, apart from dying, I guess, is not feeling pain. Because he doesn't really, I think, doesn't really want to die. He wants to stop feeling so much pain. He wants to do anything to stop feeling pain. So he goes to a private psychologist. And this private psychologist is hilarious. I think it portrays kind of a stereotype of psychologists, which are sometimes 90% true. I studied psychology for 4 years, as I said. I was taught a lot of, and I was recognizing some of the patterns that they taught us to say to patients, like, how does that make you feel? And pretend to be empathetic and pretend to care about their problems. Because when you got 20, or sometimes like public psychologists, I calculated like between 700 and 900 patients a month, you don't care about all of them. You're lucky if you care about any of them. You have an overload. Like imagine you have to 1,000 burgers a month. Would you stop? Do you still care about burgers? Would you still get excited about burgers? No, you have way too many. You need to spend 1 month at least without a burger to actually like really want a burger and be interested in a burger and blah blah blah. So it's satiation versus hunger, you know. And you can tell that this character, the psychologist, doesn't really care about Tony. He just wants the money, and he's not really listening to what Tony is saying. He's kind of every now and then pushing Tony into finding his own answers, which is another thing that they taught us with difficult patients, that you can just tell them the answer right away, what to do right away, but they obviously will reject it and do the opposite thing just because. Or you could kind of use a mageutic, I don't know how to say it, it's from the Greek, you know what Socrates used to do, which is bring the truth out of you with questions. Mageutica is in Spanish, that's how I learned it. And but he does it in such a crappy way. Like you can tell when someone is actually intelligent and making smart, specific questions, and when they are just pretending to be smart and just trying to be smartest and try to be deep, and it's bullshit, and you can tell. And obviously, Tony is a very intelligent man. He can tell. He gets upset about this, obviously, and he starts asking the same questions to the psychologist and put him on the spotlight, saying, "Hey, you actually don't know what you're doing. You're just making me waste your time." But he still goes on with it because he was kind of pushed by the brother of his dead wife, brother-in-law, I guess you say it. And he's deep down a good guy, so obviously he doesn't want to do anything, but everybody is influenced by the environment more than we like to admit. The environment shapes us way more than we think it does. And he ends up going to this therapist. And there's so many cliches and stereotypes about psychologists, you know, and especially like in my case, I felt really represented because I had depression, a really bad depression, and a very long, like chronic depression. It was so long that it was the new normal. I thought it was normal to feel sad all the time, not wanting to do anything, wanting to kill myself every single day. I thought that was normal, and until I kind of realized that it was not working. I really wanted to get my degree, and I needed to get my grades up because I was failing some exams, most of them, not going to class, blah blah blah. So I went to a parapsychologist, and they gave me half an hour every 2 months, and a different psychologist each time. So every time that half an hour, which is really 20 minutes because they were always late, it was like, "Who are you?" I needed to introduce myself, explain my situation, and then they were like, "Okay, okay, I'll think about it. I'll come back in 2 months." And then I come back in 2 months, and there's another person, but with like reading a paper and saying, "So you had depression, right? And ADHD, huh? Well, tell me about it." I talk a little bit, and I'm like, "No, you're fine. You're okay. You're good to go. Goodbye. Thank you. Don't waste our time." And I was like, "Wow, thank you so much." What really happened is that because it didn't help me, I sought help in other places, as an individual wanting to get better would do. So I was lucky enough that I was studying psychology, and my teachers, and we had 1 hour a week of like tutor guidance in a way. And I told my situation to a teacher, and she was the one who helped me actually overcome my depression. She told me exactly what I needed to do to overcome my depression, and I did that. It took a lot of effort, a lot of time, just like in the series. Like, it doesn't feel like they tell you what to do, and the next day you're just okay, better. Like, you just take a pill, and you're like, hey, oopsie daisy, I'm so happy and cheerful. I could just rule over the world and work 15 hours a day and not feel guilty or anything or suicidal. It was really slow and gradual, as most things in life that actually are a challenge and are difficult and take time and effort and blah blah blah. So of course, because I had half an hour every 2 months, in those 2 months, I was once a week talking to a psychologist outside of the hospital that actually gave me a guideline on what to do to improve my situation. And I was putting in the, like, there are patients that just don't want help. They kind of want help, but they won't do anything. They're not willing to put the hours, the effort to get better. So they obviously get worse. And that's the worst kind of patient. It's like the saying, you can take the horse to the river, but you cannot make him drink water. Well, if Tony did not want to get, he went to a psychologist, but the psychologist, okay, you need to shower once a day, and every time your friends invite you to a comedy club, you have to go with them. And he was like, no, fuck that. I will not. Then, well, fuck you, kill yourself. You know, if you don't want help, then don't make me waste my time. In a way, and it's very unempathetic. I'm exaggerating, but you get the gist of it. And that's what happened to me. I didn't feel like, especially the public health system here in Spain, had the resources to help anyone with any kind of problem. And you hear the same stories all around it of psychologists that don't listen to you, that don't care who you are, that don't know who you are, and actually don't help you. They just make you waste your time and also money, because you have to take the bus or whatever, and or you could be working in something else and spend because it took me like an hour just to go to the session of a 20-minute session every 2 months, and I always left feeling worse and angry at the system, at everything, you know. So I get the point that Afterlife is making in this show about psychologists, but I promise you that that is not always the case. As you can see, I think it's a mixed bag, 50-50. Usually, if you pay a psychologist and he's a behaviorist, there's a 90 to 98% chance that he or she is really good, actually knows what they're doing, and will actually help you out if you cooperate. If it's a psychoanalyst, and it's the opposite, there's a 90 to 98% chance that he will or she will make you waste your money, your time, make you feel worse, and instead of helping you, it will make things worse. It will be iatrogenic. And then if it's a cognitivist or a mixture between cognitivism and behaviorism, it's somewhere in between, but most likely like in the round of 80 to 90% of effectiveness and good work and actually know what they're doing, helping, and blah blah blah. So my advice is, if you're gonna go to a psychologist, which you should if you have depression, anxiety, or even you can't date, you're socially awkward, it's still worth your time. You know, you don't need to be suicidal to go to a psychologist, because something that takes you normally 5 years to learn by yourself will take you 2 months with a psychologist. So I think it's worth it. You're paying thousands of dollars on a car, on a bike, on everything that makes your life easier, that makes a route that's going to take an hour in a bus, 20 minutes in the car or on the motorcycle. Why not the same with your life and your skills? You know, instead of taking 5 years to learn how to flirt with a girl, just go to a psychologist and he will teach you in a couple of months, and then you're good to, and then you just improve, and then from there on you're just gonna get better. So it's worth it. Um, I will never recommend anyone in any country really to go to a public psychologist. I really think it's a waste of time, and the only reason you would go is because you are really poor, you have no money, nothing else, and you're suicidal, you know, really serious problems, or you want to kill someone, you're schizophrenic, something like that. For minor problems, they're not gonna listen to you, they're not gonna help you, and they're gonna make matters worse. Most likely. I might be wrong. As I said, it's a mixed bag. There are some professionals that actually do care about their patients and try their best, but more often than not, they get overwhelmed with so many patients, so many problems that they just don't care. And that's normal. They're human. Psychologists, we tend to forget that. They are doctors. They are human. And just like doctors, they get tired. If a doctor is working 20-hour shifts, and you're like, hey, I got shot, help me. They're not going to be like, oh my God, I'm going to go help you run. They're like, oh yeah, another one. Just another Tuesday. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to half-ass it, maybe save your life. But, and we're talking about life and death situations, like really in the moment. But it's normal. You become unempathetic because you're overwhelmed, overstressed, overstimulated in the same way all the time. You become habituated to that, and it's normal. So the healthy amount of patience a psychologist should have is between 5 and 12 a month. Okay, um, because it gives them enough time to actually work on the patient, to actually spend at least 2 hours a week or 3 hours a week with a patient and actually help him and improve rapidly. One of my psychologists I really admired in class said, if it takes more than 12 sessions, you're not doing it right. You shouldn't be going years to a psychologist or 6 months. You should be over in a month or two, and then you can just have the rules written and work on them. He, one of the psychologists I admired in class, he had a patient who had an eating disorder. She binged, ate and got fat and fat and fat. So she wanted to lose weight. And after 13 sessions, she did not improve a bit. And that's what my teacher said, listen, I have patients with real problems here. They want to kill themselves. And you're making me waste my time because you're not actually doing anything that I'm telling you to do. So you either get serious and start doing what I'm telling you to do, or you can just take your money and leave and go spend somebody else's time. She kind of reacted to that because it's like very direct and some might say rude, but necessary. And she actually got better. She got the message, and she lost weight. She started doing basically what the psychologist was telling her to do instead of completely ignoring all the guidelines and just doing what she was used to do. Because yeah, talking to someone about your problems helps, but to a certain extent, you're not gonna make a miracle. Really need to put some effort if you really want to change. And and well, so to kind of summarize and get to a conclusion about afterlife and psychology, I'm gonna make another video, well, maybe several videos about after because it's just so rich in themes and even philosophy and life lessons that you can just talk about hours and hours about it. But in psychology, is that if you're going to go to a psychologist, go to a private one, preferably a behaviorist or a behavioral cognitivist. Not all psychologists are crap, but there are some that are way worse than they were shown in Afterlife. There's some psychologists that actually rape their clients and do horrible and abuse their power horribly, and they get away with it legally. It's like it's very fucked up. So thank you, Ricky, for not showing that because psychologists would just run out of work, and there's a lot of psychologists that do help people and do help people get better. And but then there's the ones shown in Afterlife that are just assholes and they will not help you out. But in a way, even if they're shit, like what I learned from the public psychologists is that I was on my own in a way. That nobody else was gonna help me. That if I really wanted to overcome depression, I had to do it by myself, and that was liberating. Not depending on anyone to help yourself is the best thing ever. And women in 2019 can tell you about it. They're not waiting for a blueprint to save them anymore. They're taking responsibility of their own lives and getting their shit together, and it feels awesome. It's really hard at the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, it's the best thing ever. And it kind of happens to Tony in a way. Well, he does get help from people he meets in the graveyard, the drug addict, the sex worker, etc., etc. They kind of help him out, even the nurse. But he kind of realizes with a psychologist that he's on his own, that he doesn't need the psychologist, that he can do everything and improve by himself. He kind of gets the message that everybody's trying to tell him, that life is actually worth living, even if you don't have the person you love to share it with. So it was amazing. I loved it, and I think that's the main lesson. And if you do get a crappy psychologist, just know that not all of them are like that. There are quite a number of bad psychologists, but I think they are eclipsed or shadowed by the number of good psychologists that actually improve the world rather than making a shittier place. So that's what I take from Afterlife, and comparing it to real life, to my experience, to my years of research and spending a lot of time with psychologists and them telling me stories and their experiences on patients and dealing with um, real cases, etc., etc. So I think the next video I'm going to talk about depression and suicide, and how this show is a great tool to overcome it, and it really did a great job expressing how it feels from the inside, and how long it takes to actually make a change in your brain, to one day wanting to not thinking about anything else but killing yourself and not caring about anything, to cleaning your house and going out with friends, not being happy, but at least stable, which I love. I think because that's realistic. You're not gonna be happy over a couple of months after your wife died. That's not gonna happen. It's very unlikely. But you can become stable, become kind of neutral, and that's a big step. That's huge. That's good. That's what we're aiming for. We don't. It's unrealistic to win $1 million in your first business. You need to win first 100. Be realistic about it. If you won 100, like you lost 900, but you gained 1,000, you got 100 of in the exchange. That's really good. That's something you should cherish and work on it. So the same goes with psychological problems. It's baby steps, basically. So thank you very much for listening to this idiot rant about psychology and spoil half of the show. But yeah, if you still haven't watched it for some reason and didn't listen to my warning about spoilers, you totally should. It's gonna surprise you in very, very good ways. And if you, especially if you have depression or suicidal thoughts or both, it's gonna hit real close to home, and you're gonna like it. So, thank you very much. See you next time.